Hi everyone, and welcome back to the YouTube channel. It has been kind of a while since I've done my last sit down talking video. Actually, I don't even know how long it's been. It wasn't too long ago. It's been about 1 month since my last sit down talking video. But it's been even longer since I've actually done a Bible study, which really I haven't done a Bible study on a chapter or multiple chapters of the Bible in 2 years. I've done topic studies, I've done my Women of the Bible series, stuff like that, but I haven't done an actual Bible study since I started my channel. So that's why I'm really excited to make this video, and I'm really excited to be sharing one of my favorite, maybe my all-time favorite, I don't know, but one of my favorite stories of the whole Bible. So before we start this video, make sure to like and subscribe, and let's get started. So what we're going to be kind of going through is Daniel chapter 3, which, if you have heard, is the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So a little bit of background knowledge is, in this story, there are 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and the whole thing takes place in the book of Daniel in the Old Testament, about 600 years before Jesus came to earth. And this whole story is basically just about having a very strong and dedicated faith in God. In this video, we're not going to kind of read through the whole chapter, but we're going to jump around in it a little bit, and I'm going to explain everything. But we're not really going to go verse by verse all the way through the chapter, but we're going to be talking about Daniel chapter 3. So for a little bit of background, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, and Daniel were taken captive to Babylon under the ruling of King Nebuchadnezzar after Babylon's first attack on Jerusalem. Daniel became very favored by the king after he interpreted a dream that no one else could because of God. And because Daniel was friends with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, he was also able to bring their authority up, and they were also favored by King Nebuchadnezzar, and they all became very important. And that's all stuff we learn in Daniel chapters 1 and 2, kind of leading up to chapter 3. So this is where we get to the point of the fiery furnace, and if you haven't heard this story or you don't understand what I mean, you will very soon. At this point, the King Nebuchadnezzar, had this huge golden and metal statue built that was representing his glory, his power, and his importance. When the certain music played, basically everyone had to bow down and start worshiping this statue, and if they didn't, they would be put to death, which no one wanted. So obviously everyone just followed the rules, and they worshipped this false idol, this statue, so they wouldn't die. Everyone except for Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who refused to worship a fake idol, this statue, and would only worship God. The king was told that they were not obeying him and they were not bowing down to this statue, and he had the 3 brought to him, and he asked them if that was true, and they were like, yeah, we're not worshiping this statue. The king gave them kind of a second chance. He was like, you know what, if you just do it, we'll be cool, but if you don't, then I'm gonna throw you in this furnace of fire. And they were like, okay, well, we're not worshiping the statue. They didn't. King Nebuchadnezzar, there we go, goes on this big angry rant, and at the end of his rant, which I think this is kind of ironic, but he says, "And who is the God that will deliver you out of my hands?" Important detail for later. So I'm going to read Daniel chapter 3 verses 16 and 18 through 18, which is, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter. If this be so, our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of your hand, O king. But if not, be it known to you, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the golden image that you have set up. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego basically said, we have faith that our God, the one and true God, can deliver us from your hands, save us from the fiery furnace. And even if he doesn't, we're okay with that because that might not be his plan. But we believe he can, and even if he doesn't, we'd rather go through all of that than worship a false idol. Obviously, this response is one that the king did not like at all, and in fact, it made him so mad that he ordered the furnace they were about to be thrown into was made 7 times hotter. It was so hot that the people who threw the 3 into the fire, they died without even going in. They just died from the heat when they put them in the fire. And then we get to the best part, the climax, I guess, which is Daniel chapter 3, verses 24 and 25. The king Nebuchadnezzar was astonished and rose up in haste. This is after they were all thrown in the fire. He declared to his counselors, did we not cast 3 men bound into the fire? They answered and said to the king, O true king. He answered, but I see 4 men abound, walking in the midst of the fire, and they are not hurt, and it appears of the 4th man is like a son of the gods. Jesus literally stood in the fire with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and he was the 4th man in the fire, and he was exactly the deliverance out of King Nebuchadnezzar's hands that the king didn't even know he was talking about. So all 4 of them just chilling in the fire. The king orders Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to come out of the fire. The 4th man is gone at this point, I guess. And so he yells into the fire for them to come out. And in verse 27, it says, and the strapped, the prefect, and the governors, and the king's councils gathered around and saw that the fire had not had any power over the bodies of those men. The hair on their heads was not singed, their cloaks were not harmed, and no smell of fire had come upon them. Y'all, God popped off a little bit here. They could have crawled out of there barely surviving and it still would have been a miracle, but God didn't even allow them to smell like fire after coming out. Not a single hair on their head burned, not a mark on their skin, anything. They were completely fine. The chapter ends with verses 28 and 29 saying, Nebuchadnezzar answered and saw, blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who sent his angel and delivered his servants who trusted him, and set aside the king's command, and yielded up their bodies rather than serve any worship any god except their own God. Therefore, I make a decree, any people, nation, or language that speaks anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego shall be torn limb from limb, and their house laid in ruins. For there is no other God who is able to rescue in this way. Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon. The king Nebuchadnezzar was so impressed with everything that happened with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and declared that their God was the only true God, and gave Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego back their positions of authority that they once had. I just think this whole chapter is so amazing, and it's such a good demonstration of how God can really come through in times of need and in situations, and how we really just have to have that full dedicated trust in him. This brings me to the topic of what can we learn from this story in the Bible. And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego had an amazing amount of committed faith in the Lord, and there was no guarantee that God would rescue them and deliver them from the fire. But despite that, they still continue to only worship him and no false idols, and not bow down to the statue. And they trusted that God had a plan for them. And today's Christians may not be threatened daily to be thrown into a fiery furnace for not bowing down to a gold statue, but we still face trials, and we still need a committed faith in the Lord. And this story in the Bible is a perfect representation of that, and a perfect story to come to when in those situations, or when you need to feel the reassurance that God is always with you, and you just need to trust in Him and His plan, even if it might not be ending up the plan you had in mind, because God's plan is always better than our own. And also, I just thought of this kind of now. I meant to throw it in earlier, but I always love a chance to share probably my favorite verse, if not one of my favorite verses, Isaiah 43:2, which says, "When you pass through the waters, I will be with you, and through the rivers they shall not overwhelm you. When you walk through the fire, you shall not be burned, and the flame will not consume you." This is talking about Jesus, because He's awesome, and He will not let you get burned in that fire. Ties into this chapter of the Bible. I just think it's so amazing, and yeah, I thought that was a good time to share one of my favorite verses ever. I love you guys all so much. That's kind of the end of this video. I hope you learned something, and I hope that you had a fun time learning about one of my favorite Bible stories. I also just think it's so amazing that like all of this stuff like literally took place on this earth, even if it was like thousands and thousands of years ago. It's just like it all happened, and it was all so amazing and true. And it's just such a cool thing that we have access to this book that was literally written by God through other people, and we can read it daily, and we have access to it, so take advantage of that. It's just so important, and we can learn so much from it. And yeah, that's all I have to say. So I love you guys so much. Make sure to follow my Instagram, subscribe to this channel, comment, let me know other videos you want to see, if there's any other chapters of books of the Bible or full books of the Bible you want me to do more studies on. And yeah, I love you guys so much. Hope you have a great rest of your day or night, and thank you so much for watching.